If it's not bad enough that we have an incompetent, miserable, sorry ass son of a bitch for a president, the Supreme Court is horrific. And they are lifetime appointments, and they are proving to dismantle some of this country's greatest reckoning of righting wrongs. And there's breaking news out of Donald Trump's MAGA Supreme Court, and they are striking down a key provision of the Voting Rights Act that will have major effect on elections in this country moving forward. Let's pop this up. Our friends at Midas Touch are reporting in a major 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has struck down Louisiana's congressional map that added a second majority Black district, ruling it unconstitutional as a racial gerrymander. The opinion, written by Justice Samuel Alito, this is my own personal opinion, a racist extraordinaire, narrows how the Voting Rights Act is interpreted moving forward. Justice Elena Kagan, in a sharp dissent, joined by the court's other liberal justices, warned that the ruling weakens protections against racial discrimination in voting, arguing it allows states to dilute minority voting power without legal consequence. She described the decision as part of a broader trend that has steadily eroded key provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 2013. While the court did not overturn the law entirely, the ruling could have significant consequences. Louisiana is now likely to lose a Democratic-leaning district, and other states may revisit their own maps amid ongoing redistricting battles. Here's a map for you all to illustrate exactly what they're going to do. Here's the current map on the left. And for those of you listening, you can see the Bible Belt states, and you see that there are blue districts in there. And now the new possible redistricting scenario, the Republicans would gain 12 more seats. And so this is clearly institutionalized racism. And this is what makes me so angry, because I have been so vocal to people in my lives about anti-Black racism and what a problem it is. And people are dismissive and they poo-poo you for it. And here we are. And 77 million people vote for this kind of stuff. And it's devastating. This is devastating to our country and any sort of racial reckoning.
Well, I've been sick ever since I read this opinion. And what it tells me is, despite all the, flailing of how popular Trump is, how popular Republican policies are, they know that they're not. And this hit me in the gut as a Democrat Republican thing. And then when I got into the meat of it, it made me so sad. Because, for example, in Louisiana, 1/3 of the population is Black. And now they will not be represented in Congress. They are basically saying your vote doesn't matter. It's Jim Crow laws all over again. It dehumanizes and allows white people to sue for discrimination. And Sam Alito says, well, it only comes up if you say that you have an intent for racial discrimination. And what that means in practice is, I am introducing this law to redistrict, and I'm doing that because I don't want Black people to have the opportunity to vote. That's what the new requirement will be. And it's sickening, and we're going backwards as a nation. We're not falling back. We have fallen back, and it is sickening.
Well, and this started a long time ago. And I remember when John Roberts was appointed by George W. Bush, and he was young and he was conservative and he was groomed by the Heritage Foundation, because originally George W. Bush picked his personal attorney. It was a lady's name. I can't remember her name. And Ann Coulter and all of that Bush echo chamber at the time freaked out. So then he picked John Roberts. And I remember Josh, my criminal defense attorney husband, talking about how conservative John Roberts was and how they were going to go after all of these things. And one thing we have to realize is Trump didn't come down and just break the Republican Party. He's just less polite about it. George W. Bush and other Republicans are more polite about their racism. They try to package it up. We're compassionate conservatives. Trump has unshackled them from any sense of decorum. And make no mistake about it, Alito, Thomas, John Roberts, the handmaid, all of these people at their core do not believe in equality and are actively dismantling the Constitution. And Trump is viewed as a useful idiot. He was able to get the cult together where now they are all gas, no brakes. Who else is doing that right now? Oh yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's all gas, no brakes, because Trump doesn't believe in anything. And the same with Vladimir Putin. So you have power grabs going on from people where typically an American president, an American court might put up guardrails. They're all saying, look, we've got 3 years left to wreck as much as we want to. And they're going full tilt in it. And here's the Washington Post with more reporting on the decision. Let's pop this up. The decision could touch off a scramble by Republicans to redraw minority majority districts, especially in the South. New districts could shift the balance of power in Congress by imperiling the reelection prospects of some Black Democrats, possibly as soon as November's midterms in some instances. The ruling also carries significant symbolic weight, effectively scaling back the last major pillar of a 60-year-old law considered one of the marquee achievements of the civil rights era. The Voting Rights Act bans discriminatory voting practices like literacy tests and poll taxes and has helped greatly increase minority representation in state and federal offices. What makes me so upset about this is just the normalization of anti-Black racism again, that the dehumanization of it, and it's everywhere in America, but it's typically in the South. It is ubiquitous in these Bible Belt states. And living in Oklahoma for 51 years, I worked really hard to help get Democrats elected. And every time I would host a party or fundraise for somebody, that candidate lost. And they lost again and again and again. And I had to come to terms with the fact the South and that electorate, they get what they want. These governments that are driving the states into the ground, these governments that are passing racist homophobia legislation, these people like the recreational cruelty. And I had to come to terms with that because in my mind, I would always project once they see the light, they're going to vote. They're going to vote for equality. Once they see the light, they're not going to be racist or homophobic. And time again, when I ventured outside of my very progressive friend group, and I would be with people that presented as moderates or people that presented as, oh, I'm a center-right Republican, couple of belts in them, and they were racist, homophobic, Fox News consumers. And it's really, really devastating that that segment of the country is just still so inherently racist. These are the people that fought in the Civil War to preserve racism, and they're still trying to preserve it, to preserve slavery. Let me correct that. And they're still trying to preserve institutionalized racism.
Well, it's just generational white supremacy. We are better than you. And nothing, when you always talk about the Republican Party being a death cult and that you had to come to terms with them not caring. As you know, Oklahoma is abortion ban America. A female was pregnant. She was about to lose her life and had to travel out of state. She was very eager. She went to the governor's office, to her state legislators, and said, this is what happened to me. And because she thought, of course they'll care. This was unintended. And the reality is they don't care. They like it. They like to have the power because that is the only thing that makes them feel that they have power, is marginalizing and pushing someone else down. And it makes me sick.
Yeah. And the Mark Elias is spelling out what this means. Let's pop this up. And Mark Elias, for those of you that don't know, is like the premier election lawyer in the country. He does incredible work. You should follow him on Substack and other places. Today's VRA, that's voting rights, decision is intellectually dishonest and wrong. And the conservatives basically said Black people can vote for their preferred candidates as long as they prefer the right candidates, which will be Republicans. An absolute mockery of the law and stain on the court. And our producer Ryan went on to research this, and he says it's unclear how much this will affect elections right now, but knowing Republicans, they will do everything they can do to redraw districts so that they can keep the House. And it's important to know they want to keep Black people from voting. And Black people are the backbone of the Democratic Party. Florida is poised to redraw maps for this November. We need to watch that closely. This comes after Republicans lost their minds last week after a Virginia redistricting map was approved by voters in the state. And I just want to say, Pumps, to your point about Oklahoma, and this is really important that people understand. Kevin Stitt and the Republicans in Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt's the governor. Kevin Stitt and the Republicans in Oklahoma do not want freedom for women. And these are the harsh realities that people have to face. If you get raped, if your daughter gets raped, tough titties. You have no freedom. You have no choices because Kevin Stitt and the phony, fake, megachurch Christians that care more about profits than they do about human beings has made sure that Oklahoma is not a safe place for women. And if you look at that map, that redistricting map, that is abortion ban America. Yep. And all of those states too are all bottom 10 states. MAGA policies are an anti-family death cult. Their policies always lead to the destruction of family. They remove guarantees of safety and equality for women. And it's a death cult. They've dismantled the EPA. It's chemicals in everybody's food, snow vaccines, measles outbreak, but they lie. They go into rural America and they Christian signal and they get their Bible and they get people this exchange. They give them this exchange like, look, we'll make sure these Black people can't vote.
Right.
if you vote for us. We'll make sure that you get to be a racist if you allow us to not raise your wages. And what's so sick about the Bible Belt South is so many people enjoy the cruelty of that. There is an appetite for punching down in Bible Belt America, and it is a part of the culture. It's giggled about, it's laughed about, and these are all of the people, when I had that viral video about these people not eating in Mexican restaurants, don't watch football, these people that will support this dismantling of the Voting Rights Act want to watch football. They want to watch NBA basketball. They want to enjoy all the benefits of Black culture and then dehumanize and say to these elite, fabulous Americans, shut up and dribble. Entertain me. It's disgusting. And I cannot impress upon the people on the coast how racist people in the Bible Belt are. It is ubiquitous. It is unrelenting. And then we have, speaking of crazy Christians, and I think I read that she was a Scientologist at some point, Pam Bondi. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. Y'all can fact check me in the comment section. Pam Bondi failed to comply with a subpoena to give a deposition on the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files. Robert Garcia and House Oversight filed contempt charges, and the fired, disgraced Pam Bondi. Play the clip.
Minutes ago, we filed official contempt charges against Pam Bondi, of course, the former Attorney General, and it is not acceptable that she chose to not show up to her scheduled deposition in front of the Oversight Committee through a subpoena that was sent out by the chairman of this committee. Now, it has been 2 weeks since she has refused to show up for her deposition that had a date set. And that subpoena made it very clear that it was for her, whether she was the current Attorney General or not. We strongly believe that she has been involved in a major White House cover-up around the Epstein files.
Pops.
I'm delighted to see that. I'm delighted that we actually have accountability. Unfortunately, here's the thing. Pam Bondi is a fucking liar. Remember the Dow's over 50,000? She doesn't give a shit about the truth.
45 minutes after Robert Garcia's the Oversight Committee post, this is all theater and completely unnecessary. They were happy giving the Clintons a free pass for months. We have secured Bondi's appearance for May 29th. Today, we're marking up legislation to tackle fraud at the federal level, and all Democrats can talk about is Epstein. So that was in response. That's the House GOP oversight response. But they've secured her appearance for May 29, and I can just say we will have all eyes on that. And this is a woman who goes in and acts like a nut. She starts throwing feces at the wall, and I mean, she's a complete lunatic. And it's going to be interesting to see, because the day after she was fired, they went into DOJ and they took her portrait off the wall and stuck it in the trash, and somebody took a picture of it. That's how little loyalty and siding with child rapists is rewarded in the Trump regime. She was discarded in a trash can. It's going to be interesting. I think she's still going to go in and act like a cunt. I think that that's going to be her position.
Absolutely. And I don't think she'll answer questions. I don't think she'll be honest. She's committed fucking crime. She's in a conspiracy to cover up child sex trafficking. She has not prosecuted any of those people. Now, that's my opinion, but I think it will bear out. But when I read this, I was so fucking mad when I saw that we're trying to pass federal laws, and all the Democrats want to do is talk about the Epstein files. Fuck you. Little girls were raped and trafficked, and you know the people that did it, and you're covering for them. So don't act like this Congress couldn't pass a beat your meat law because they can't all agree on anything. And I am infuriated that James Comer, who sat there, how many hours of his life has he spent talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, who gives a flying fuck? Little girls were raped, but they don't give a shit about that. They don't want to talk about that.
Of course they don't.
They're buddies.
Of course they don't. Look at how Republican parties treat women. If you're a rape victim, you don't have freedom. This is not new. It surprises me zero that Republicans are covering up pedophilia, because when you get into these white Republican evangelical worlds, they believe in a hierarchy system where the most incompetent member of the family is typically the pink arm leader of the household male who's probably got a Grindr account on the side. And then you've got, the wife who's doing Bible study and everything. She's talking, oh my God, hi, how are y'all doing? Oh, my husband and I are going to do this. And it's just this bullshit, superficial family values fraud. It is a total fucking fraud. These people have no scruples, no conviction, none. And the most insidious are the apologists for this, the people who excuse and look away from this shit. Those are the worst of the worst. And I'm talking about these country club Republicans that will let children get raped and never confront anything as long as their 401k is intact.